The sky of the swampy planet was covered in thick clouds, and the air was heavy with humidity and silence. Luke Skywalker felt the weight of the Force pressing on his spirit, while his body struggled to keep up with Master Yoda's teachings. In recent days, the training had become less physical and more spiritual. Yoda seemed in a hurry, as if he sensed time was running out. "Soon, leave I will," he said. "But before the hardest technique, learn you must." Luke knelt, focused, feeling the call of the Force pulsing within the living swamp that surrounded them. "Phantom projection. Reach it you must." Yoda began, his voice hoarse and weakened. "More than illusion. Your essence it is, you, in another place." Luke had already seen simple projections during training, but what Yoda proposed went further. He spoke of a technique forgotten by many, used by great masters in ancient times, which allowed a Jedi to project his consciousness beyond space. "But more there is," Yoda added, looking into Luke's eyes. "With clear mind and soul in balance, beyond time, travel you can." Luke widened his eyes. The idea seemed impossible or dangerous. The training was brutally demanding. Luke spent hours in deep meditation, floating above the swamp in total silence. Yoda used the Force to create illusions that tested his concentration. Echoes of the past, visions of the future, temptation and pain. In one of the exercises, Luke saw his sister Leia being hurt by Vader and almost broke the connection with the projection. "Fight what you see, you must not. Accept all, yes," Yoda would say. The technique demanded total detachment from emotions, something Luke still hadn't fully mastered. Years later, after Yoda's death and the fall of the Empire, Luke found himself on Ahch-To. When he finally managed to master the technique and project himself, Luke saw himself floating above the planet. He saw the galaxy as a vortex of living energy and understood that the phantom projection was more than an image. It was his own soul crossing dimensions. However, something different happened. In the last meditation, when he reached a state of total harmony, the space around him began to distort. Stars became blurry, and time seemed to slow down. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer on the swamp planet, nor in the present. He stood before a stone garden, with ceremonial columns lit by torches. Two people in formal clothing stood together in silence. Luke instinctively recognized Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala, hand in hand, exchanging vows under the gaze of a Naboo priest. It was the secret wedding of his parents. Luke swallowed hard, moved. He had never seen that scene, never truly lived with his parents. And yet, the feeling was strangely familiar, as if something inside him said, "It doesn't have to be this way." Moved by a sudden impulse, Luke murmured, "What if I could stop it?" He stepped forward cautiously. His presence was visible to the naked eye, and a light breeze stirred Padme's veil. The groom looked around, suspicious. Luke tested his voice. "Anakin." The Jedi stopped, startled. "Who's there?" he asked, drawing his lightsaber, though he didn't ignite it. "I'm a friend. I've come to warn you about what's to come." Padme frowned, trying to make out the figure in the mist. Anakin approached, wary but curious. Padme held his arm, sensing something more in the apparition. "What do you want from us?" she asked. "Only that you listen," said Luke calmly. "I am an ally of peace, and I bring a warning. There is a future where your love becomes the seed of a terrible tragedy." Anakin narrowed his eyes. "You're saying that something will happen to Padme?" Luke nodded. "And to you too. A fate that can be avoided, if you know what lies ahead. Lies and pain will tear you apart, and that separation will destroy everything around you." Luke then spoke of the birth of the Empire, of Anakin's transformation into Darth Vader, of Padme's death, and the destruction of everything they loved. "I saw you, Anakin. I saw your eyes filled with fury, your soul shattered. You lost everything because you believed you were protecting, when in truth you were surrendering to fear." Anakin shook his head, furious. "That's a lie. I would never hurt Padme." Padme, in turn, broke into silent tears, touching her belly. Luke felt his heart grow heavy but knew he had to go on. "You'll have children, twins. A boy and a girl. They will grow up apart, in fear, in the chaos you tried to avoid. Anakin remained silent for a moment, then shouted, "Who are you? How do you know all this?" Luke hesitated but didn't reveal the truth. "I'm just someone who saw too much, and who doesn't want it to happen again." Padme looked at him, eyes full of tears. "How can we stop all this?" Luke replied calmly, "By trusting each other, escaping the shadows before they close in." Anakin didn't yet accept what he had heard, but something inside him began to give way. "If this is true, then I need to do something." Luke took a step forward. "There's still time. The choice is yours." Padme took Anakin's hand. "Maybe the Force brought us together for something greater than the two of us," Padme said. Anakin looked at her and murmured, "I won't let anything happen to you." Luke felt a faint spark of hope shine between them. "Change begins now," he said, "but it will be a hard path." The two then began to discuss what to do, how they could remain together without falling into the political and emotional traps the future would impose. "We have to step out of the shadow of the Jedi Council and the Senate," said Padme. "If what he says is true, we're just pawns." Anakin was still torn, but something stirred within him. "What if we disappear? Vanish from the galaxy for a while?" Luke heard this with surprise. That might be the key. A new plan was starting to form, and with it, the possibility of rewriting the entire history of the galaxy. Luke kept his gaze steady, projected like a ghost before his young parents. The twilight light of the lake on Naboo reflected in Padme's eyes as she tried to process what she had heard. Anakin, on the other hand, paced restlessly. "There's more," said Luke gravely. "Much more than just death and tragedy. There are betrayals, manipulations, and it all began with Palpatine." Both froze. The Chancellor's name struck them like a cold blade. "Palpatine?" asked Padme. "He's always been a supporter of the Republic." Luke took a deep breath. "He comes close to you, Anakin, like a friend, like a father, even, but he is the very Sith Lord you were looking for. He is Darth Sidious, and in the future, he names himself Emperor." Silence fell like a heavy cloak. Anakin frowned, shaking his head, and Padme said, "That's not possible. He helped me, listened to me when my planet was under invasion. But now that I think about it, he was the one who instructed me to call for a vote of no confidence in the previous Chancellor, putting himself in power." Luke spoke with more force. "Exactly. He understands your pain because he uses it. He plants doubt, feeds your fear, and turns your anger into weapons. He made you believe it was all for the Senate's good. And for Anakin, he made you think the Jedi Council was betraying you. He made you see Obi-Wan as an enemy. And you destroyed everything you swore to protect." Anakin looked shocked. "You're saying that I killed the Jedi?" Luke lowered his head. "Yes, one by one. Even the children in the temple." Padme covered her mouth, horrified. "This isn't real. This can't be real." Luke looked at her. "It was real. I saw it. Obi-Wan from my time saw it. He tried to stop you, Anakin. He fought you on Mustafar, and nearly died trying." Anakin turned away. The shadows of night lengthened around the lake, reflecting his internal chaos. "He arranged it all so I'd see him as the only one I could trust?" he asked. Luke responded, "And it worked. You defended him. When Mace Windu tried to stop him, you intervened. That was the moment of the fall. That was when Darth Vader was born." A tear rolled down Padme's face, and Luke felt the weight in his chest. "I just wanted to save those I love," murmured Anakin. "And that's why he won," Luke replied. "He used that love against you." Anakin looked at Padme. "And I, even trying to save her, ended up killing her." Luke looked at the two one last time. "I can't change the past through actions, only through words. You must be the ones to change. I believe that's why the Force allowed me this ability. This future is not yet written." And then, his form began to dissolve, like mist touched by light. Padme tried to reach for him, but her hand passed through. "Thank you for giving us this chance," she said. Luke disappeared completely. Now, the darkness was real. Only the tension of a decision remained. What would they do with what they now knew? Anakin fell to his knees in the grass. If I stop Vader from being born, will Padme still live? Or will fate find her another way, like it did with my mother? Padme approached and touched his face. You're not alone anymore, Anakin. Now we know. Now we have choices. They spent the night talking. Would they run away? Confess everything? Leave the Jedi Order? No choice seemed without risk. If we run, we'll be hunted. If we reveal the truth, no one will believe us, argued Anakin. Padme, always thoughtful, said, there is someone who might understand, who already knows your fears. Both thought of the same person. Obi-Wan, Anakin whispered. He's the only one who can hear and understand. And so they decided. Obi-Wan had to know. The next morning, they sent a secret message to Obi-Wan, requesting that he come alone. A few days later, he arrived, concerned about the request for absolute secrecy, but attentive. Why the secrecy, Padme? Anakin? He asked. They looked at each other and, with courage, told him everything. It all started with my dreams, said Anakin, with my mother's death, then visions of Padme dying too. He then spoke of the Tusken slaughter, of the pain he had carried ever since. But that's not all. Padme, with a firm voice, told him about the secret marriage. Finally, they revealed Luke's apparition. He said, he was our ally, Anakin shared. Obi-Wan fell silent. His eyes showed no judgment, only genuine concern. These dreams, this pain, you never told me all this, he said to Anakin. The latter replied, I was afraid of being expelled from the Order, afraid of losing Padme. The Jedi Master took a deep breath. Love isn't the problem, Anakin. Fear is, and it's guiding you. Padme interrupted. Obi-Wan, he showed us visions of the future. A future where Palpatine reveals himself as a Sith and wins, where Anakin becomes a monster, where I die, and the Jedi are destroyed. Obi-Wan stared at her in shock. This is far too serious. If it's true, we cannot ignore it. Obi-Wan sat down, thoughtful. If Palpatine really is the Sith we've been looking for, that changes everything. We need to confirm it. Cautiously, in secret, Anakin stood up. I want to stop this future, but what if, by trying to fight it, I end up causing it? Padme squeezed his hand. Obi-Wan replied calmly, that is the paradox of fear. The more we try to avoid destiny, the closer we get to it. But now we have a rare chance. Knowing what's coming can change everything, if we are wise. And so, the three decided to keep it secret for now. But the first steps toward change had already been taken. Obi-Wan paced back and forth, hand on chin, reflecting on every detail he had just heard. The presence of a Jedi from the future, who hadn't even revealed his name, stirred his mind deeply. Something so powerful and so secret. Hard to believe, it is, but the Force, paths beyond logic it always has shown us, he murmured. He looked at Anakin and Padme seriously, and after a long silence, said, I thank you for trusting me. Had you hidden this, everything could have collapsed entirely. Obi-Wan's voice was full of emotion and gratitude. The burden of keeping secrets can be devastating, especially in times like these. Anakin crossed his arms and exchanged a glance with Padme. It was hard to decide whether to tell you, but we knew you were the only person who'd think before judging. Obi-Wan nodded. Now we must be cautious. No one else can know this, not even the other masters. Padme frowned. What will you do, Obi-Wan? He looked at her gently. I will go to Coruscant. I need meditation, and I need to speak with Master Yoda. If there is anyone who can help illuminate this path, it's him. Obi-Wan's journey to the Jedi Temple was silent. As soon as he arrived, he ascended to the meditation chamber where Yoda remained in deep stillness. Yoda slowly opened his eyes, serene, and watched Obi-Wan. Grave, I sense. In your spirit, unrest there is. Obi-Wan took a deep breath and explained everything. Anakin's dreams, the apparition of the Jedi from the future, Palpatine's betrayal, and the plan to manipulate Anakin. Yoda remained motionless for several seconds before murmuring, "Visions of the future. Misleading they can be, but truth, they show too, sometimes." "Master," Obi-Wan continued, "I have no doubt that Anakin is trying to stop something very dark, and, honestly, I saw sincerity in his eyes." Yoda gazed at him gravely. "Trust Anakin deserves, but danger in him resides. The Force, very strong in him it is, and in the shadows, something hides." Obi-Wan nodded. "We must decide what to do. I can't tell anyone else for now." Yoda closed his eyes again. "Observe we must. Act too soon, consequences may bring. But ignore risk that is as well." Now there were four who knew the whole truth. Anakin, Padme, Obi-Wan, and Yoda. All of them gathered to talk, knowing that any misstep could put the galaxy at risk. The story of the Chancellor's fake kidnapping stayed in their minds as a key piece. "If Palpatine plans his own capture," said Obi-Wan upon returning to the hideout, "then he is one step ahead of all of us." "And what if we strike now?" asked Padme. "Dooku would remain at large with the Separatist leaders and keep attacking, and the Senate would demand explanations. We need proof before any action." It was at that point that Obi-Wan and Yoda reached the same conclusion. Palpatine will never reveal himself if confronted directly. He must be led into error, and only one person can do that. Anakin stepped forward, heart heavy. "It's me, isn't it?" Obi-Wan nodded. "You will be the key. We need you to get close to him, to let him believe he can seduce you with his promises. According to the vision that was given to us, he's waiting for the right moment to do just that." Anakin hesitated. "And what if I fall?" "You won't," replied Obi-Wan. "You're no longer alone." Anakin agreed, but he set one condition. "Padme stays out of this. I don't want her anywhere near the Chancellor while this act is going on." She wanted to protest, but saw the fear in Anakin's eyes. "All right," she answered, though her heart was tight. Obi-Wan then laid out the details. "We need proof. Palpatine will try to test you, lure you with ideas of unlimited power. He'll say the Jedi don't trust you, that they don't understand you." "He's not entirely wrong," murmured Anakin. The years that followed passed slowly, but with growing tension. Anakin and Padme's marriage was kept secret, and they lived under constant watch. Obi-Wan returned frequently to stay in contact and monitor the Chancellor's actions. Master Yoda, meanwhile, continued investigating disturbances in the Force and tracking the movements of the war. During that time, Anakin played his role with precision. He began to visit the Chancellor's office more often, listened to his speeches, answered his questions, and appeared increasingly loyal. The plan was simple and risky. Provoke Palpatine until he made the mistake of revealing something. Anakin realized over time that the Chancellor truly watched him with exaggerated admiration. "You are the most powerful Jedi I have ever seen," he would say. "You have the potential to change the galaxy, young Skywalker." Anakin pretended modesty, but every word was part of a dangerous game. Padme kept her distance, as promised, and Obi-Wan continued sharing his findings with Yoda, both waiting for the right moment to act. Over the years, Anakin mastered every nuance of the game. He knew what to say, when to remain silent, and when to show discontent with the Jedi Council to stir Palpatine's ego. "They do not understand your greatness," said the Chancellor. "But I see it. I understand." Everything was logged in secret records and memorized. It was like a dance between light and shadow. Until one day, the news came unexpectedly. The Chancellor had been kidnapped, and that was when everything began to change. The war against the Separatists had intensified in recent years. Many systems were collapsing, and the Jedi Council was increasingly pressured to act with urgency. Amid this chaos, an urgent transmission arrived. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine had been captured. The coordinates led to a system in the Outer Rim, where Count Dooku maintained an old command post. This time, not only Obi-Wan and Anakin were sent. Master Yoda himself went on the mission, hidden inside a secret pod, unknown even to the clone generals. The Jedi ship broke through the Separatist blockade and infiltrated Dooku's massive vessel. Inside a command room, Palpatine sat chained to a dark throne, appearing as nothing more than a helpless pawn. Anakin and Obi-Wan entered the room with lightsabers drawn, ready for battle. Count Dooku awaited them in combat stance, while the Chancellor sat bound behind him. But the Jedi had a plan. Before initiating the duel, Obi-Wan cleverly activated the room's communicator, linking the transmission channel to all nearby Republic ships. They would make the truth heard. The fight began with intensity. Count Dooku spun his red blade with deadly precision, striking with elegance and strength, the blows of a true fencer. Obi-Wan advanced and retreated like a dance of light, but Dooku soon used the Force to unbalance him, throwing him brutally against the wall and knocking him unconscious. Only he and Anakin remained. The sabers clashed in sparks, and Skywalker's fury grew with each movement. He had become stronger and more skilled. In a decisive blow, Anakin severed both of Dooku's hands, bringing the Sith Lord to his knees, defenseless. Palpatine leaned forward in his chair. His eyes burned with anticipation. "Kill him, Anakin," he whispered. "Now. He deserves no mercy. Bring justice." Dooku, wounded, raised his eyes at the Chancellor, incredulous. What are you saying?" "Come on, Anakin, your moment has come. The Chosen One must slay his enemy without pity. Show no mercy. That is the true path to power," Palpatine urged. Count Dooku looked at him in disbelief. This was not part of the plan. Had he been betrayed? "My master? Why do you want me dead? You taught me everything and now you discard me," he roared. "Anakin, he is the true Sith Lord, not me. Spare me." Anakin hesitated. The moment Palpatine had awaited with such eagerness had finally arrived. He believed Anakin would surrender to the darkness, even after hearing those words. "Release your anger, Skywalker. Become what you were born to be," he insisted. Anakin raised his saber, but instead of delivering the blow, he turned his face to the Chancellor with a wry smile. "Interesting. You seem eager to see me kill," Dooku gasped, whispering with a broken voice. "He is the Sith Lord. He is Darth Sidious." Anakin widened his eyes. The revelation, though expected, still shook him. But Palpatine did not flinch. With a swift motion, he summoned his hidden red saber from his sleeve and, in a single movement, freed himself from the chair and struck Dooku in the neck right before Anakin's eyes. The head rolled slowly to Skywalker's feet. Palpatine turned to the young Jedi, his face breathless but hungry for power. "All this entire war, I created it for you, Anakin. I can teach you secrets no Jedi has ever dreamed of. We can save Padme from the fate you told me your dreams revealed." Anakin stood silent for a moment, pretending to consider. Then, he smirked and pulled a small device from his belt. "Thank you for sharing all of this with the galaxy," he said. The microphone was still on. Outside, thousands of clone soldiers, officers, and Jedi heard every word. The betrayal was exposed. The Chancellor's face, once the symbol of the Republic, was now that of a cruel, manipulative Sith. Enraged, Palpatine let out a deafening scream and extended his arms. Purple lightning shot from his hands and struck Anakin, who tried to defend himself with his saber, falling back. "You will die!" roared the Sith, leaping into the air with spinning acrobatics and unleashing devastating attacks. Anakin fought with all he had, but he was exhausted. The battle with Dooku had drained him. Every bolt that hit him burned his skin and made him clench his teeth. He remembered Jedi training, serenity, but also Padme and his promise to protect those he loved. Palpatine was skillful, almost superhuman. His strikes seemed to anticipate Skywalker's movements. The Sith's words were poison. "I am your destiny. You were born to be more than a weak Jedi." The room was in ruins. The floor trembled with the impact of the blasts. In a moment of vulnerability, Palpatine grabbed Obi-Wan's unconscious body and suspended him with the Force, holding him between himself and Anakin. "Surrender or he dies," said the Sith, panting. Anakin, sweating, injured, his clothes in tatters, stepped back, analyzing the situation. If I were alone against the Sith, I might still win. But not with such an important hostage, not after fighting Dooku. He felt the Force vibrating around him, but also the darkness growing in the heart of his enemy. "This isn't over yet," growled Skywalker, and he was right. Palpatine had managed to impose himself through cunning, power, and cruelty. He seemed to be winning. Obi-Wan's body floated like a macabre shield, and Anakin lay prone, struggling to rise. The two faced each other like predator and prey. And though the galaxy now knew the truth, the danger was more real than ever. At the moment Palpatine raised his red saber to finish Anakin, a strange breeze swept through the flames. A small, serene figure approached from behind the Sith Lord. It was Master Yoda, who had waited silently for the exact moment to intervene. Raising his tiny hands, he used the Force to push Obi-Wan's unconscious body away and free Anakin from the invisible restraints that held him. "Arrived, the time has. End this cycle of darkness. We must," Yoda said, his voice calm, yet as firm as destiny. Palpatine turned, hatred in his eyes as he saw the ancient master. "So even you came, old fool," growled the Sith. But Yoda was already leaping toward him, his movements graceful and powerful. He spun with his green lightsaber, striking with precision, blocking the enemy's attacks with almost inhuman agility. "Skill, you have, but purity of heart, you lack," said Yoda, countering each blow. Using the Force, he redirected bolts of energy back at the Sith, absorbing some of the impact with his own body, yet never backing down. Exhausted, Palpatine no longer had the same vigor. His lightning, which had nearly defeated Anakin, now failed to breach the old master's defenses. He tried to disarm Yoda with a swift saber strike, but the small Jedi dodged and struck back with a precise counterattack. "Fueled by rage, you are, but focus you lack," murmured Yoda. Every trick Palpatine tried was foiled by a subtle but precise movement from the master. Even his mental influence was blocked by Yoda, who twirled through the air as if dancing with the light itself. Anakin, still staggering, rose again and felt the Force rekindle within him. Surrounded by the hope of protecting his masters and breaking the dark destiny that awaited him, he joined his power with Yoda's. Together, they pushed Palpatine with such intensity that the ship's columns began to tremble. Flames advanced, devouring panels and corridors. "Together we will win. The Force with us it is," Yoda declared, and Anakin replied with a firm, determined nod. But fate, as always, had one last move. Palpatine, with a mad scream, hurled metal debris at Yoda and managed to strike him. The master fell with a soft groan, his body lying still for several seconds. The Sith cackled, preparing for the final blow. That's when Anakin, his eyes burning with fury and compassion, summoned his saber through the Force and hurled it into the air. The blue blade spun, slicing through the Sith's legs with precision. Palpatine screamed in pain, collapsing on the floor, unable to move. Anakin slowly approached, his face bathed in shadow and flickering light. "Unfortunately, I am not as gentle as Master Yoda with those who try to hurt me, and the ones I love." And with a firm motion, he cut off the Sith Lord's arms. Without mercy, he lifted Palpatine's body with the Force and hurled him into the flames, where the Emperor met his end. The trio of Jedi, now victorious, returned to Coruscant. The transmissions from the command room had revealed the truth about Palpatine to the Senate and the entire galaxy. Without his leadership, the Separatists collapsed like a house of cards. Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin were welcomed as heroes, and peace finally seemed within reach. A new republic began to rise, not from oppression but from justice. When he returned to his own time, Luke Skywalker discovered that the future had changed. The Empire had never risen, the Jedi had never been exterminated, and his childhood with his parents was real, not a dream. He felt warmth in his chest, as if all pain had been rewritten by the courage of a single moment, and a tear rolled down his face. The Jedi had eradicated the Sith and brought peace to the systems. Padme and Anakin lived in peace and raised their twins with love. Leia became a senator and a symbol of hope for the galaxy. Luke, in turn, became a powerful Jedi, always guided by balance. Anakin, now graying, watched young Luke meditating in the temple gardens. With tears in his eyes, he whispered, "It was you, the ghost from the future, who came to save me." And then, for the first time in a long time, he smiled in peace.